Hello students, this is going to be just a review of Act 1 of The Crucible. I hope you enjoyed reading it. In addition, I wanted to make sure that you knew that the option to watch part of the movie was available too, so I put a link of where you can either rent it or purchase it. I highly recommend watching at least the first part, which is Act 1, and that goes to about page 35. All right, so Act 1. Act 1 begins in the house of Reverend Paris, and his daughter Betty is unconscious in the bed upstairs. Prior to the opening of the play, and if you watched the video, you saw that, or the movie, Paris discovered Betty, his niece Abigail, and Tituba, and some of the other girls dancing in the forest outside of Salem at midnight. When he came out of the bushes, Betty lost consciousness and remained in a stupor ever since. The town's physician, Dr. Griggs, has not been able to determine why she's ill and suggests that they possibly might need to think about witchcraft as a cause because there's no medical reason. Reverend Paris is distraught and troubled because he knows that Abigail has not been entirely truthful about her actions in the woods, and so he confronts her. He says that he saw her and Betty dancing like heathens, and Tituba moving back and forth over a fire while mumbling unintelligibly, and an unidentified female running naked through the woods. Abigail denies that she and the other girls were participating in witchcraft, but Paris suspects that she is lying. He thinks that she and Betty have conjured up spells, and so this is the scary part of it, because if this is witchcraft, that is not acceptable in this town. He also questions Abigail about her character and the reason why Goody Proctor, who is the wife of John Proctor and a very well-respected woman in Salem, dismissed her from working as the Proctor servants. Now, as a background piece of information, first of all, Goody is just another word for good woman or a Mrs., so you'll hear that throughout the play. And also, Abigail did have a short affair with John Proctor, which is why she was dismissed as working as their servant. We have Mr. and Mrs. Putnam, who are part of the town, and they are members of some of the prominent families in this town. And they come into the room and they say that Betty's illness, is from witchcraft. They also stated that their daughter, Ruth, has fallen into a strange trance. Ruth's condition, coupled with the fact that 7 of the children from Mrs. Putnam have died as infants under mysterious conditions, it has convinced the Putnams, Mr. and Mrs. Putnam, that evil spirits are at work at Salem. So you're going to hear a lot of, and we'll talk more about this, logical fallacies, and that just means reasoning that is faulty. Like, if you have children that have died as infants, then there must be something about witches or evil spirits in the town. Putnam tries to persuade Paris that he should declare the presence of witchcraft, but Paris is worried about doing that to the town. There are people in the town who want to remove him from Salem, and a witchcraft scandal involving his family would give them the power to get rid of him. Abigail and Mercy, the Putnam servant, they try to wake up Betty. Abigail tells Mercy what to say when she was questioned about what she was doing in the woods because she wants to hide this. And she says, tell them only that they were dancing. She also says that she knows Tituba called to Ruth's dead sisters. Abigail reveals that Mercy is the female that Paris saw running naked through the woods. And Mary Warren enters the room, and all these are girls that are part of this little group. And if you have to think about it, Abigail is like the leader of the group. It's kind of like Mean Girls on that movie, and Regina George. She is telling Abigail that everybody is blaming witchcraft for Betty's illness. And this frightens them because they're all worried about becoming accused of being witches. And so the 3 girls they're arguing about this, and Betty wakes up. Abigail tells Betty that Paris knows everything and that she can just wake up and stop this. And Betty confronts her and accuses her of not admitting that she drank blood, because she tried to drink blood because she was calling upon John Proctor to fall in love with her and that Elizabeth would die. She also accuses her of casting a spell in order to kill Goody Proctor, so she wants Elizabeth to be dead so she can have John. By threatening Betty, Mercy, and Mary Warren if they tell anyone about the spell, Abigail tells them to say that they only danced and that Tituba raised Ruth's sisters from the dead and that nothing else happened because she's trying to protect herself and them. John, Proctor, and Abigail are alone in the room with Betty. Proctor questions Abigail, and Abigail just says that it's just mischief. And she denies any involvement in that, and she states merely that she and the girls were having fun and they were dancing in the woods. Abigail asks Proctor if he has come to see her, but Proctor denies it. The conversation reveals that approximately 7 months earlier, Abigail and Proctor had an affair while Abigail lived and worked in the Proctor's household. That was why Goody Proctor, or Elizabeth Proctor, dismissed her, and now Abigail accuses Proctor of still being in love with her, even though he will not admit it to her or to himself. But he says he will not have any more to do with her, that that's in the past. Betty begins screaming and covering her ears, and the parishioners are downstairs singing a hymn, and so they attribute this to being witchcraft because they're saying that if Betty can't hear the Lord's name, then that's a sign of witchcraft. Rebecca Nurse enters, and she's kind of a voice of reason, and everyone is kind of standing down until she calms down, and she tells everyone to be quiet. Putnam asks Rebecca to visit Ruth and attempt to wake her, and Rebecca says that Betty and Ruth's condition will pass, that they shouldn't be looking for witchcraft for an explanation, and that really that she says once everything calms down and the danger is over or the fun is over, they'll wake up. Putnam declares that witchcraft is to blame for the loss of his children and becomes hostile to Rebecca because Rebecca has never lost any of her children and she has a number of children and grandchildren. Proctor criticizes Paris for preaching about God rather than money, and then there's this situation where they start arguing about his salary and the expectations of his role as minister, and so all of these things are kind of building up and creating tension. So there's tension over witchcraft, there's tension over money, and there's also going to be tension over land. Paris claims that a faction within Salem is trying to get rid of him. So faction is one of your vocabulary words. That just means a small group is trying to get rid of him. And then they start talking about land and lawsuits and land rights, and that's another thing that becomes a source of tension in the town. Putnam accuses Proctor of stealing wood from his land, but Proctor says he bought the land 5 months ago before from Goody Nurse's husband. But Putnam states that Goody Nurse's husband didn't own it because it belonged to his grandfather. So there's confusion as to who really owns the deed of the house. Reverend Hale is an expert in witchcraft, and so he was called upon to come to the Paris's house to figure out what's going on. Hale tells everyone that he will not examine Betty unless they accept the fact that witchcraft may not be a reason. Mrs. Putnam states that Tituba can conjure up spirits, and she admits that she sent Ruth to Tituba so that Tituba could conjure Ruth's dead sisters in order to find out who murdered them, because she's all worried about why her babies had died. So this is all leading up to the witchcraft, okay? And so they're telling Reverend Hale these things because he's trying to figure out, like, who caused this, and is there the devil, and is there witchcraft? Goody Nurse, that's Rebecca Nurse, leaves when Hale prepares to examine Betty for signs of the devil because Hale says the process may cause the child pain. So he believes there could be some witchcraft involved in the devil. Giles Corey tells Hale that his wife Martha has been secretly reading books and that these books prevent him from praying. So that is he's thinking then this is a sign of witchcraft. Paris tells Hale about Abigail, Betty, and the others dancing in the woods. Hale questions Abigail, and she blames Tituba for everything. Abigail says that Tituba makes her drink blood, plagues her dreams, and tempts her to sin. So Abigail starts blaming, and this is where that whole mass hysteria is starting to unfold because people are going to start blaming other people and blaming other people about being witches. and it's going to cause this mass hysteria and this witch hunt in the town. Hale questions Tituba and tells her that she can redeem herself by admitting she's been working with the devil and by telling him the names of anyone else involved. She admits that she has seen the devil and that Goody Good and Goody Osborne are with him. So now she is starting to blame 2 other people. And you should note that she was threatened into telling that information. So it's not really truthful information, but they basically told her she didn't confess she would die. Abigail admits that she has given herself to the devil by writing her name in his book, and she renounces the devil and says she wants the sweet love of Jesus. So now she's putting on this also falsehood so that it takes suspicion to get away from her, and it also kind of gives her more power. And she starts saying that she wants the sweet love of Jesus, and she's confessing, and none of this ever happened, but she's trying to get the suspicion away from her. She also claims to have seen Goody Good and Goody Osborne with the devil, along with Bridget Bishop. Betty wakes up and claims that she saw George Jacobs and Goody Howe with the devil. Act 1 ends with Abigail and Betty naming individuals that they have seen with the devil. And so this mass hysteria comes, and all these accusations come about. And that is how the chapter ends, with all of these people being accused of being witches when really they're not. And it's gotten into this huge mass hysteria that's gotten out of hand.